Robbie McEwen, you've been involved in a stage and relegation in a stage that may very well have cost you the green jersey here at the Tour de France. What do you think about what happened to Mark Renshaw in stage 11 and being kicked off the race?
Well, it's a totally different type of incident where Mark's job as a lead-out man, I think, has also been put under the microscope by the jury. And if you look at it from start to finish, Julian Dean came up and what he did, although it may have been annoying for Mark, it was still well within the limits of what's acceptable in the run into a finish. And Julian knows that 'cause he's very, very experienced. Mark decided then I think he just cracked, he flipped, because those teams have been really battling against each other for a long time, all season, even from last year. And I think it just all became too much for Mark, and in that one moment he decided, right, you got to get out of my way, and he hit him pretty hard with his head a few times. And I think if it was only that, he'd still be in the race and wearing a fine. When you go a little bit further, when the actual sprint started and his job was effectively finished, the moment that he looked over his shoulder and then swung to the barriers with Farah, that's another thing where you may, if it was only that, you may just get away with a disqualification and a fine and stay in the race. But when you put those two incidents together in one sprint, it's the old 1 + 1 = 3, and they're going to chuck you out. I don't think he gave him much choice, and it's unfortunate that the fantastic job he's done in this tour as a lead-out man has had a shadow cast over it by yesterday. But I think he'll live and learn, and it's part of racing to learn how far you can go, and ultimately it's the jury's decision, it's their interpretation of what happened. But I mean, I watched it and I sort of felt myself cringe and go, oh yeah, he's out.
Well, look, as a sprinter going for the victory, if you make an infringement, obviously you get penalised, and as it cost you perhaps the yellow jersey. For a lead-out person to just relegate them to last position, it's not really much of a penalty. They can just come back the next day. If there's a small fine, pay the fine, do it again the next day. So I guess that's the next step that's been taken by the jury, to actually penalise someone that really needs a harsher penalty.
Correct. It's like I said, where they were looking also at his role in the race as a lead-out man, and the lead-out guys have a responsibility to bring their sprinter to the front in the best position and try and help them get the win. They also have a responsibility to everybody else who's riding behind them at 60+ km/h coming into the sprint, because if they cause a pile-up, I mean, it's on their head and everyone else is going to go down. And that's probably part of what the jury thought about. And also, like you said, you fine or disqualify from the stage a lead-out man, it's not even a slap on the wrist, because his job's done. If his sprinter's won, he's still drinking champagne at night and getting pats on the back, and it doesn't mean jack. That's probably what they're thinking about too, because if he just gets a warning and a fine, there's no reason not to come out the next sprint and do exactly the same thing, because you're going to get away with it. Maybe if they'd given him the chance, he would have calmed down and not done it again. But it's one of those things. They've obviously said, we're going to nip this in the bud. Done, gone.
Julian Dean, stage 11, you were right in the thick of it with Mark Renshaw. He's now been kicked off the race. Just thought we'd have a chat to you, mate, to gauge your reaction on what do you think happened there yesterday?
Yeah, I mean, obviously the race jury or the race commissaires didn't take it in a very kind light, and saw that action needed to be taken, and probably really gave him the most severe action they could by throwing him off the race.
Well, when he actually headbutted you, I guess, how did that feel? You're an ex-track rider, as he is as well. You both handle your bikes quite well. It looked bad on television, but how bad really was it?
Yeah, I mean, certainly, I didn't move too much, so I made a concerted effort to try and hold my position and hold my line, and not try and disrupt the riders behind me too much, because that's when something severe can happen. And I like to win, like everyone else likes to win, but more I don't want to crash.
Look, Mark said that the incident where he pushed Tyler Ferrara into the barriers, he said he wasn't thinking about that at all. He was actually just trying to get onto Cavendish's wheel and do the sprint for himself because Cavendish went so early. That was his defence to what happened there. What do you think about that?
Yeah, it sounds like a reasonable answer, but you know, it didn't do Tyler any favours. So you know, I mean, it wasn't. I think the whole issue was not just you know, I don't think the jury saw that was you know, that was the reason that he was trying to pull a move like that.
Cavendish, I guess, has proven himself to be the fastest man going around at the moment, but he's now without Adam Hansen in the lead-out train and, of course, Mark Renshaw. That's a big advantage now going forward for you guys.
Yeah, you can say that, but knowing Cav's character, I think it's probably going to make him harder to beat in the sprints. You know, he's going to be very determined, so we'll see how that pans out on the next sprint.
Okay, Brett Lancaster, mate, you're part of Torhushov's lead-out train. What do you think about Mark Renshaw being thrown off the race, and was it worthy of disqualification?
I'm not quite sure if it was worthy of it. It's a bit harsh being thrown off the actual race. He definitely did have a bit of dangerous riding there, a few headbutts, and really looked and come off his line, but maybe a harsh warning and relegated to last might have been the best option. But yeah, it's up to the judges, and what can you do?
Well, okay, to be relegated, if you're racing for the victory and get relegated, like we saw with Robbie McEwen, he lost enough points in the green jersey a couple of years ago to lose the jersey overall because of that. If you're a lead-out man and get relegated, doesn't really mean that much though, does it? So they could probably just keep coming back and doing it every day.
Yeah, also, but the job that Mark's been doing for Cav is pretty awesome, and it's going to be, you know, a big shock for Mark Cavendish now, and he's going to be missing Mark Renshaw a whole lot.
Well, it's a big, you know, I know I spoke to the Garmin guys before, it's a big plus for them losing Hansen and now Renshaw, so the HTC train is weakened. Same for you guys with Tor, much better chance of getting the green jersey now.
Yeah, I don't think Cav's our problem at the moment. Our problem's Pataki with the green jersey, so we'll be looking for other ways to try and beat Pataki. But yeah, it's going to make the sprints a lot more interesting now, that's for sure.
Perhaps try and get some of your guys to entice Pataki's lead-out train to start throwing some headbutts, and maybe they'll get thrown off as well.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. We'll might throw Jez Hunt in the mix and see what he can do.
And from an Australian perspective, obviously it was a disappointing day with what happened with Mark Renshaw. You were involved in a similar sort of incident back in 2005 with Robbie. What's your take on the whole disqualification? Do you think it was a bit harsh, or looking back on it, it was probably justified?
To be honest, I haven't actually seen the footage. I just saw the headbutts thrown, and yeah, I mean, if we've been kicked out for every headbutt, I don't think there'd be many riders left. But yeah, I mean, I think it was, I don't know, I haven't seen the footage properly. I think it was probably a little bit harsh, but yeah, that's how it goes sometimes.
And there's been heaps of action in this tour already, and with what happened yesterday with Renshaw, I mean, what's your take on the whole disqualification?
Yeah, there's been punch-ons on and off the bike, wheel throwing, diamond cutters, and I mean, that's racing, that's intensity. I don't want to really comment on Mark's situation. I'm not a sprinter, so I don't probably have the same emotions as they do. I can't headbutt anyone on a climb. Or maybe I could, but you know, I don't know whether I'd connect. But it's unfortunate, just the situation. But that's intensity, that's racing, and often enough, you know, these things happen. So it's part of the world we live in.